Welcome to Computer Talk's video series Pharmacy Forward. I'm Maggie Lockwood, and in this edition, we speak to Germaine Robinson of Germ's Thrift Clinic about her experience with the Medicine on Time Pharmacy Performance Program. Germaine shares how she combined adherence packaging, medication therapy management, and data from her EQuiPP dashboard to run a 5-star pharmacy on autopilot. There was also a financial benefit as she saw reduced DIR fees. I hope you find the conversation with Germaine interesting and maybe get some tips for your pharmacy.
So I've been in all areas of pharmacy. The last was working for a big chain, which there I was able to learn how to do MTM using the MTM platform. So I started keeping up with MTMs, and then I think it was spring of 2018, Tori approached me about the pilot program. And I had actually just got involved with the EQuiPP platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fooling around with it and, just trying to get patients compliant. And my scores really weren't moving that much. So when she approached me, we decided, well, let's look at the outliers. And I believe we took about 20 patients. So I approached the patients, offered them packaging. And lo and behold, I think after 6 months the PDC scores went up. I think they were averaging in the 60s. They went up to 90% out of those 20 patients. And patient adherence, I believe, were lingering around in the mid 70s. And I got those up into the 90s as well. And that was within 6 months.
And do you attribute that to just the packaging or the sort of the counseling that goes with the packaging?
Well, both. My older patients just absolutely loved it because they, stayed consistent with it. And the beauty of that is you get to do 30 days. You don't have to do 90 days. But I was so troubled with the EQuiPP scores. I'm trying everything. I knew the outliers. Once our scores went up, we're like, well, now we need to see about DIR fees. Called Brittany Boyd with PQS, which is with EQuiPP. Mm-hmm. And thank God for her, because she was like, okay, well, let's pull out your trimester report. And I'm like, what? CVS trimester report. And I'm like, oh, those things, I've been throwing those away because my mentality was, well, they're going to take my money anyway.
Right.
And she's like, oh, no. So with Brittany, she actually got into the EQuiPP dashboard a little deeper and showed me things that I was just focusing on outliers, but she showed me how to use the performance tab where you could actually see each insurance company, how many patients you have with each insurance company.
Oh.
Yeah. So with that, I was able to figure out through Pioneer how to run reports specific to those patients that were, on RASA, diabetes medicine, and statins. So right there, we just have a system where we just run reports weekly. We see, who needs refills, who doesn't. And I mean, the flow is just there. So since 2018, I've been a 5-star pharmacy with the EQuiPP dashboard.
Wow. And it sounds like it took very little
effort. And I am a majority, pretty much half and half Medicare and Medicaid, which now Medicaid is on board with, all of the metrics as well. So I'm glad I got in there early in the game. And now I met up with a friend who's a nurse practitioner, and they're getting hit now, with having scores and stuff. It's actually an opportunity if patients are packaging, their adherence scores are good. I mean, you can approach physicians and say, hey, I can help you with this. As a matter of fact, I have a physician next door that she can look and run a report and see how many of my patients are compliant to other pharmacies. Just to collaborate with a physician, just pick a couple of physicians and prove your point. And word of mouth gets out there too, So anytime there's a problem patient, they'll send them to me, hey, can you package their medicines for them, please?
That's great.
Yeah. And it is about the patient being adherent as well. We want them to be on the medications, to have their blood pressure under control, their diabetes under control, especially with COVID. It targets certain people, and so we want to keep them, healthy, and it really makes a difference. It's no time whatsoever. So once you get into that, establish, what insurances are affecting your scores, you run those reports. You don't need extra staff.
So you'll go into the EQuiPP system and
I'll I can run a report on what outliers I have there, and follow up with those. But for the most part, the ones that show up are either no longer on the medication or they're a new patient, that wasn't compliant at the previous pharmacy. So it does take a while to get those established, and get them off of as being an outlier.
Right.
But I'm telling you, it has just been on autopilot, really. And, so many people are afraid that, oh my God, I'll have to get extra staff. That is not the case whatsoever. It's just.
So clearly it's had a financial impact, a saving.
DIR fees, I've been, you have that variable range. And again, I was throwing away those reports thinking they're going to take my money anyway. But, at the end of the day, let's not give them extra. So by doing this, and like I said, it's on autopilot for DIR fees, I'm always at the bottom of the range, always. And in 2019, the 2019 to 2020, my performance payout increased 500%.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And that's starting it in 2018. So, it just kind of I stayed at the 5-star level, and now they've increased it. It was a lower percentage. I think it was 80% initially. Then they went up to 86%. And now most of them are at 90%. Wow. But I'm at 90% or above. Yes. So it's important to learn that EQuIPP dashboard. And it's not that much trouble, just to get those outliers situated, and you can figure out what problem are they having, and it could be they're not taking it because it's giving them a problem and we're not communicating.
We touched upon the coaching, but it sounds like the coaching you get from Medicine on Time,
they'll set up an appointment, walk you through a video, just walk you through everything, the packaging, printing the labels. Their software is amazing. And the beauty of it is, with Medicine on Time packaging, at the bottom, they have each drug listed and a picture of each drug. So if someone, let's just say a doctor says, I need her to cut her fluid pill in half, whatever. So they'll call me. I can either repackage it and cut them for them. If it's towards the end, they can identify the drug already,
very easily
on the package. So when they take it out, they know to split that one in half.
It gives you actionable
data. Well, yeah, clinical, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And, have that intervention and say, well, why do you have all these extra metformin? Back to packaging and versus 90 days, you get more reimbursements that way, monthly, versus getting that one fee for the 90 days.
Right.
So doing a program like this does help that as well.
Yeah. I mean, financially, that's what pharmacy's trying to do, right? Is make sure that you actually get paid for the services you're providing. And this sounds like it really puts you in that direction.
For a high volume store, I'm not high volume, but for a high volume store, they could be leaving 5 figures on the table. And that's a salary for someone else if you think you need an extra staff, but you really don't. Once you get it going, it's on autopilot after that.
But it sounds like in this particular situation, working with Medicine on Time, they provide that coaching so that
absolutely
you can get your staff
and their knowledge of the EQuIPP dashboard, their knowledge of the Caremark trimester report is phenomenal. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, so it was a learning experience. But once you can see what they're grading you on, it's nice when somebody explains it to you.
Right.
I would still be throwing it away till this day, probably, if I had not had that intervention with Tori. And, we didn't know anything about it. And Brittany Boyd, she's like, oh no, let's walk through this. Now it started piecing itself together. And again, just running the right reports, and following through with the patients, it just worked itself out. And now I really very little do I have a problem with the patient. So, and the EQuIPP dashboard, it refreshes the 15th of every month. So you get your scores, and then you can, print your outliers and go to your software and see, okay, let me see what's going on. It could have been they were in the hospital, things like that. And that happens. Well, you can document patient was in the hospital for 2 weeks or whatever and discontinued this medication. And again, with EQuIPP, it does take a couple of months for that to drop off. So they may show up as an outlier for a little while, but then they'll fall off of it.
It's really exciting. I think it's a good story to share, because people don't have to feel, they can feel more empowered as far as implementing a program like this.
Yeah. And again, it's not as bad as it's, everybody's always scared to start something new. It's hard to get out of that box we're in, and I was always just like, oh yeah, I'm ready to try this. Let's go for it. And it really paid off. It pays off. It does. And it's not that bad. Once you get your routine going, it's a cakewalk.
All right.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was really nice meeting you. I enjoyed this conversation.